Hey, it's the nerdy sports fan. And now the draft season's over, teams are going to get about the grim business that is veteran cuts. Now, a lot of this stuff isn't really going to happen until some semblance of training camp starts to come about. But some of these moves are already happening. You know, ones that can cause a cancerous atmosphere in the room, like Andy Dalton getting shipped out because Joe Burrow's obviously the man of the future there in Cincinnati. Well, these New Orleans Saints have spent a lot of money, which means they're very tight against the cap, and there's a handful of players that you have to start looking at as, are these guys really going to hang around? Now, you want to look at the top 3 draft picks. So Cesar Ruiz in the first round isn't necessarily just a center. He could play center or guard. You have Adam Troutman, the tight end, in the 3rd round. And not to mention Zach Bond, the outstanding outside linebacker and pass rusher coming out of Wisconsin. All of these guys potentially will have an impact this season. They're all very talented in their own right and will likely help this team, especially as it gets later in the season and they've got their feet wet in the league. So considering all of them are really win-now players that are drafted, you have to look at the positions that they were drafted for, the players that are already in those positions, especially the older guys, the guys that are becoming free agents very soon, to see, well, that guy might be getting the boot. So Larry Warford, for me, is probably the most obvious. Yes, the interior offensive line for New Orleans has been a strength, and Warford's been a part of that. But he also makes roughly $8.5 million a year and is a free agent coming up in 2021. Moving on from him, either via a veteran cut or a trade with another team that's more desperate for interior offensive linemen, could make a heck of a lot of sense. Now, Cesar Ruiz, because he played center, it might not be a necessarily immediate plug-and-play situation, but I think he's going to be more than capable of it. So that deal makes a lot of sense to me. Now, tight end, Jared Cook, not exactly the player he was, and didn't have the biggest impact on the offense last year in general. Adam Troutman, now just a more athletic option than what you have in Jared Cook, almost solely based off of youth, makes Cook expendable. This is another guy. He's making $7.5 million, but he's also the wrong side of 30. He's 33 years old and also a free agent coming up in 2021. So I see Jared Cook on the chopping block pretty easily. Again, teams really prefer to get a deal done if they can trade him for a 6th or 7th rounder, get something out of them before the end of their contract. That's always a beneficial thing. But in this case, these 2 players' cases, it's also a money-saving thing. Right now, the Saints obviously have their full-size preseason roster, and there's going to be plenty of cuts just to get down to mandatory roster sizes for the collective bargaining agreement and the NFL rules. But these guys, they're just getting older. They're going to be free agents soon anyway. They have direct replacements recently drafted, which brings us to the last one, Demario Davis. His name doesn't pop off the screen when you look at New Orleans defensive players. And Zach Bond is going to be a premier talent in this league. He was fantastic in Wisconsin. He's going to take somebody's job. Demario Davis, another $8+ million a year guy, another free agent in 2021, is the most logical person to get the axe because of that. So this is, again, a very, very common thing in the league. It happens every single season. Not every team has to deal with this sort of thing. Just the ones that are close up against the cap. And the Saints are most certainly one of them. It's one of the problems of being a perennial Super Bowl contender. You always have this tenuous salary cap situation. They're definitely going to clean house of a lot of contracts as soon as Drew Brees retires, assuming, of course, they don't think that their quarterback coming behind him is actually capable of getting them to the mountaintop. But right now, these last few years of Drew Brees is going to be a lot of people coming in, a lot of people going out, just to try and find the right mix in order to get him over the hump. And this is what I expect to see coming forward. So again, Warford, Cook, and Davis likely on their way out, if nothing else, just to make the salary numbers work. Tell me what you guys think the Saints are going to do with their roster coming up. There's obviously a number of players that are going to be cut by other teams. And if you make these moves, you're going to create more space than needed. So you might be able to get one of the other veterans from another team. Tell me what you think, though. Like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Hit up my other videos because we just did draft grades. And if you haven't seen them yet, it's always good to look through what the rest of the league is doing. Thanks for watching, guys.